I have a company that blends renewable energy, not residential, commercial, industrial infrastructure. And I have 2 buildings off the grid, totally with battery banks. I do tours all the time. Just email me, I'll get you the tour.
Wait, I heard there's something going on after the conference.
We have, after the conference, renewable made alcohol will be served. For any of you over, what is it, 21 is the age? Over 21. So we'll be checking.
Your place, right?
Right, my place, and it's 706 North Ivy Street, 3 blocks from the Clarendon Metro. With that said, I also teach 3 interdisciplinary courses on renewable energy at the George Washington University. My 3rd one, though, of note, is started this summer, and I just heard will be renewed, which is the first course in the country on renewable energy and critical infrastructure. And that's running everything, cell towers and pipeline plants for water, sewage, fuels, data centers, hospitals, and all of that's run with a mixture of renewables and, guess what, energy storage, which we're going to talk about. So I have a very short time to give you sort of the big picture. But I want you to know I did it myself, and starting 18 years ago when I set up my company, when batteries were not 67% less expensive, or as good as they are today, were actually cost effective 18 years ago, and I did for my commercial industrial clients, as I do today. So this is my McKinsey chart. I love this chart. I take other people's charts legally. Very colorful, but these are the 12 disruptive technologies, and I just want to point out 3 on the left. Of course, the top one on the left is renewable energy, and that's what we're talking about. But the 2 down, advanced materials, is really what we're talking about. We are in a material science renaissance, and in fact, we are able to make materials that 10 years ago we could not make. And so the reason you're seeing batteries, which is number 5 down on the left, is this material science renaissance. The reason we can put wind turbines in the water in an ocean that's 700 times more dense than air with acid and salt and animals that pit is the material science renaissance. So we are, and of course, different films and layers that we're doing with photovoltaics as well. So I just want to point out that that is a driver. This is not unto itself. It's part of actually a broader technology experience. And I do want to point out that I work with 11 commercially available battery materials. So we all talk about lithium ion, and it's great, and I use it for about 1/3 of my projects, but there's actually many more out there, and the batteries we use today will not be the same batteries 15 years from now. So I want you to be very clear on that. So when I get asked about batteries, I show this slide. This is August 2003, and you can notice that a good part of the United States is dark at night from the satellite picture, actually 8 states and parts of Canada, from 3 days to 3 weeks, due to a human error. A tree limb fell in Ohio, and actually we blame the Canadians. We're saying, like, how did we get into this? I love this story, it's true. And so it caused about $185 billion worth of lost economic activity. But we have grid outages all the day. I actually track them. Here's a chart I just pulled because it sort of looked at, this is 3 years from 2010 to 2013, and you can see these are outages for more than 1 hour. 1,229 in 2011, Virginia was number 9, then Virginia was number 9 again, and then Virginia was up in 2013 to number 6. And I have more data on that. We have lots of outages all the time. It is human error, it is old equipment, it is squirrels. I did a peer-reviewed paper on that, happy to share. There are drunk people, there's some terrorism, there's some cybersecurity. There are a lot of reasons for these outages. In addition, with climate change, we are getting more intensity of patterns that are affecting our electric delivery system. And so I pull this out because I give it to my classes, but I want to give it to you for a minute. We mix up resiliency and reliability. Reliability really means, can we have something that gets us over the outage? Most outages are a couple hours. Actually, in my part of Ashton Heights, the Clarendon area of Arlington, we've had some for a couple of days. my neighbors knock on my door in the evening to come into my home to drink my single malt scotch when that happens, many of which who do not like solar. But I'll leave that around. That's reliability. Resiliency actually is getting the critical infrastructure or critical functions within a building to withstand high-impact external events whose likelihood was historically low, but is now increasing. I am here to tell you something real sad. It's going to happen more and more. And the other part of this, there's the other side. We rely on a working grid and the things it does, particularly communications and other issues, more and more as well in an industrial society. So batteries have a lot of impact in the interplay of those two issues. So this is my view of the world. Battery storage has 4 trends. In the short term, it gives you power quality. We're going to talk about that in a moment. And arbitraging subrates. In the commercial, industrial, and institutional sectors, they pay they have higher rates, electric rates embedded in their bill. They are expressed as demand charges, peak and seasonal power rates, in certain states, spot rates or ratchet rates, and I try to zero out those rates. In fact, in Texas, where they get 1.9 cents a kilowatt hour wind at night, we soak it up with batteries and displace 13 to 16 cents electricity by the day. It's very economic, very fun to do. The medium term is this resiliency and reliability we talked to and critical shared infrastructure, because those are the important parts of our society. The 5 kinds of market focus of batteries are utilities, slow but even, we're going to talk about that, but it's moving in gigawatts around the United States. Commercial, industrial, institutional, which are my markets, it's all about money, right, and keeping things going. Infrastructure, I just talked about it. Government, I do a lot of military bases, different things relating to government security, and of course, what most of you are here are for residential, and we'll talk about that. So these are my 2 buildings, including SpongeBob, happened to be during the weekend over here. But you see the solar on top. Both buildings have their own battery banks, and they're all fed, the front building, by a mixture of solar panels on the top roof and my lower roof. On my back building there, it's solar panels, a small wind turbine, and a hydrogen fuel cell tied to the battery banks. So I want to also point out to you that if you're thinking of batteries for your home and business, you don't need battery banks for your whole home and business. Actually, that's sort of ridiculous. You don't want to be as crazy as I do. What I do for my clients is I find out what are the critical functions. So in my home, it might be, if I didn't have a home off the grid, I would do my sump pumps in my basement, so my basement doesn't flood, my refrigerator, my electronic ignition on my stove, potentially my electronic ignition on my gas furnace, my web router, a couple lights, TV set. So you pull down the sub panel, and for my commercial clients, that's what I do. I pull, what are your critical things? Your data centers and Wi-Fi are important because it's your business, your phone service, your business, your security system, a critical function, industrial sector. It could be slurry industries, moving plastics or grains through pipes that if they stop, they harden and cost millions of dollars in a half a minute of outage. And I put those things tied to the battery bank. So not every circuit is equal. I joke with them, I joke with you. If you have an outage, I can use a flashlight to go to the bathroom and pee. I really don't need a light, but there are other things that are very important. I can't cool my food. So this is sort of a list of those kinds of things. So as you know, our grid is in the midst of a major transformation. And I see many of you with my friend Rick back there with bald head and gray beard, a couple of others, looking damn good, by the way. I want to point out, remember that everything was central station power plants that went on transmission lines to 2 different levels of substations, distribution lines, and that was the name of the game. And now we're moving to this whole distributed system. Yes, we'll have central station power plants, but we'll have large generators along transmission lines, like wind and geothermal. We will have solar and small wind and potentially some others at substations. And of course, we'll have a whole panoply of renewable energy at the end user. And in the midst of that, you see we have all these batteries. We have a lot of storage going. And I told you gigawatts, so we're going to cover that. So this is EPRI, Electric Power Research Institute's grid, looking at storage roles for the grid. And you have storage roles, you're going to see pictures of giant battery banks that are hooked up along the transmission lines, giant battery banks at substations, distributed storage it's called on this chart, and battery banks at the end user. They all have different roles, and it's all going in by the billions of dollars as you're all sitting here and we're talking about it. This is my best circle chart ever. If you go on the website, I want you to grab this down, because this is, I tell my students, if they don't memorize this, they're gone. So this is the three sectors of attributes of battery storage. I'm going to read them quickly. The transmission part of the grid, which is ISOs, the interstate grid operators. You have energy arbitrage, spin and non-spin reserves. Remember, we keep little power plants basically idling, so when more people turn on their air conditioners or whatever, they come on. You don't have to do that anymore. How cool is that? Frequency regulation, we're going to talk about that in a moment. Voltage support, we have hundreds of thousands of little diesel generators pumping electricity in transmission lines so the power moves in one direction. They're old. When they break down, they drop fuel and pollute the groundwater. Get rid of that old stuff. And black start, meaning when the grid goes down, we can start within 1/100th of a second. For utilities themselves, they have more resources. They can stop congested power lines because they can pull the power beyond where the congestion, just like a highway. When you have too many cars and everybody has their air conditioners on, we have blockages in the power lines, so you have batteries that you can pull on the other side of that to get around your congestion problem and flickering. Transmission deferral and distributed referral. And by the way, distribution referral means wind blows at night. Not a shocker, if you're not a millennial, you're not up that late. So what we do is we take that power and we, like when wind blows, which is mostly at night, and use it in the daytime. I know it's going to be shock to you, everybody in this room, but solar mostly works, actually only works when the sun's out. Damn! So, well, that's actually pretty good in Arizona, because that's when the midday air conditioning loads are and everybody else. But in Seattle, it's at 4 o'clock when everybody's in the coffee shops and all the coffee machines start operating. It goes till about 10 o'clock. Well, solar's not great at that time. So with battery banks, you can defer and follow the loads, which is one of the complaints utilities used to have of this stuff. So in fact, this chart, some other chart I took illegally, is the reason I've been hired. Sadly, it's not because of my beard. Sadly. As the grid gets older and we have intense weather patterns, we have voltage sags, which are under voltages, voltage swells, which we call over voltages, or mostly what we actually call surges, which you've heard about surge protectors, and transients, which are electrons that just come out of your wall socket that are like free radicals that wreak havoc on digital equipment. Actually, it didn't matter 20 years ago because we didn't have much digital equipment. Now, everything's digital. Even my refrigerator and my damn stove are digital. It scares me. Who knows what Putin's going to do soon. But anyway, the point is we have these problems. What's nice with battery banks is they absorb all that stuff in your building or along the lines, and what comes out the other side is very clean, pristine electricity. So if you lose an appliance before its life, or of course your computers, that's probably what's happened, is you have gotten one of these things that have come out of your wall socket and wreak havoc on your digital equipment. So this is, in this 21st century world we live in, power quality is very important at the industrial, commercial, infrastructure, business, and residential sectors. So there it is. So batteries are getting cheaper. This is Bloomberg 2018, Bloomberg Energy Finance. This is looking just at lithium ion. is the battery of choice. Now, why is it the battery of choice? It's the battery of choice because we've used it in our cell phones, our laptops, our hybrid vehicles, and now our electric vehicles. We have a lot of it. They have good power density, means you can get a lot of power out. You can drain them down to near zero. That's great. And you can start getting 10-year warranties out of them. So that's why it is. It's becoming a common player. Is it always the best battery for a building? No. I have to air condition them. I have to make sure there's venting in them. I have to have all kinds of safety equipment because they get thermal runaway. I can use up to 8 or 11% of my power taking care of my batteries. So I always don't use these in buildings unless I have loads that operate like vehicles. What are those loads? Duct pumps, sump pumps, air conditioning is duct pumps, those elevator shafts where you're having spurts of electricity draw and they act more like your foot on the pedal of an automobile. Most buildings are not like that. So in fact, I mix the batteries. I put a battery bank for those on a sub-circuit breaker panel, and I'll use other kinds of batteries that don't need that kind of level of use, and they're safer, and I lose less electricity for them. Here is another Bloomberg Energy Finance chart, again, looking primarily at, this is a combined battery. I don't think this is the lithium one, but you see the same thing, that battery prices are coming down. The basic term of art, it's over 60% the last 5 years. It's coming down another 21% the next 3 years. And so that's what I want you to understand. Here are the other kinds, some other kinds of batteries with lithium ion, flow batteries, advanced lead acid, sulfur sodium, sodium metal hydrides. Again, I'm working with 11 of them. They're all pretty cool, and I like them. These are electric car battery range over the time. Now, of course, this is all pretty much lithium ion, but as you see, ranges are increasing from 2009, and so that's our goal, and that's what the battery industry is trying to do. So this is Rocky Mountain Institute, Amy Lovin's group in Colorado. They just put out a report basically saying that renewable storage reaching cost parity with the grid. That is my message to you, is this study, and there are 5 others like it, happy to share them, not going through them all today, but the fact is that as batteries get lower costs, and of course solar and small wind and some of the other renewables I work with are at much lower cost, I am actually getting at the end use, financing it or with power purchase agreements, equal or lower than what I get from the grid. The other issue that's more important, it's far more reliable, and the power is far more cleaner, less surges, sags, and transients. My clients really cherish that. So this is in 2015, October, California became the first in the nation with a storage mandate, and this is 1.3 gigawatts, a nuclear power plant and a third worth of batteries. These are all, as a result of that, here we are in 2018, and look at all the rules and things going on in all the different states about energy storage, and primarily battery banks, pumped hydro are the 2 leads in that, but we're also doing projects with compressed air and storage, hydrogen, flywheels. There are a lot of other kinds of energy storage out there, but there's a whole host of states that are following. This is an interesting article, and I always put it up here. It's 2013 Wall Street Journal, not the most renewable green reporting entity in the world, but here they were basically saying that that since for 7 years, since 2006, that commercial industrial has gone from 10 to 40,000 installations of renewables behind the fence, by the way, most of them with storage. And I'm happy to tell you that in 4 years, 2013 to 2017, so even faster, we had 45,000 businesses incorporate renewables and storage. So in the commercial industrial sector, this is taking off. So again, this is 2015. We only had 100 megawatts, and now things are really moving. So Hawaii followed California. Hawaii, of course, has very high energy prices, imports all of its energy. Today, they have another big problem. They have so much solar, the power lines are just clogged in the midday. They can't do it. They can't take it in. So first they said no more solar. They almost had an insurrection. So bipartisanly, now they're promoting storage on site. So you suck up the power, you use what you need, you hold it, and then around 4 o'clock when they need it, you let it out on the grid. So it gives you so much more flexibility. So this is 2017 in March, and this is a picture of a solar storage project in Hawaii, and you can see all the PV in the back, and of course the battery storage from Tesla in the front. These are also 2017. This is in Illinois, and this is taking wind power at night and tying it to the grid. This is on the PJM grid, also in Illinois, 31 megawatts of battery banks sitting there from solar and wind. This is looking at energy storage around the world and how it's growing from 2016. We're in 2018. You see it's growing pretty fast, but they're expecting it to grow in a huge way from renewable. And look, the bottom blue is renewable ramping and smoothing, primarily wind and solar. How do we take it in? When do we put it on power lines? But the red is the frequency regulation, power quality. The blue above the red is the transmission distribution capacity, dealing with voltage blockage on the lines, dealing with generation, and of course peak pricing. So, and this is just giving you a little set of 60 megawatts of storage. This is the Tesla one in Australia, where he did this to wind turbines, storing it. You know, Australia's having big outages on the grid, so this is starting to sort of help stabilize battery storage. This is Florida Power and Light, 10 megawatts and 40 megawatts of battery storage to their solar plant. This is battery storage in Puerto Rico and what's been going on there. I'm doing a lot of projects, of course, since the hurricanes in Puerto Rico, of course. This is Colorado. Army installs the largest battery storage system. This is August 2018 for a military base, 4.5 megawatts with AECOM here in Virginia is the company. Tucson Electric, this is January 2018. Tucson Electric signed a solar plus storage privately financed deal at 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour. So that is, in Hawaii, it's a similar one for 11 cents a kilowatt hour. By the way, they're paying 20 cents a kilowatt hour in Hawaii, so 11 cents sounds high here. It's actually much cheaper than what's going on in Hawaii. So these are my battery banks. I use absorbed glass matrix batteries. These are Concord batteries from California. My previous AGM batteries, Sun Gels from Australia, lasted 13 years, had a 10-year warranty. I expect these will last 15 years. And by the way, they're in a quasi outside, they're just protected from the rain. I love AGMs, aside from being sealed and long warranties, I don't need to do anything with them. And by the way, they go from 40 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit to 150 degrees above 0. So I have them in Greenland, I have them in the Gobi Desert. They work great. So I don't need the same storage behavior as I do lithium ion. This is the first actually standardized battery bank in the United States. This is GridPoint. This is the one I have in my office building behind my home. This is 40 miles from Tokyo, pre-Fukushima. They have 100 towns where every home is a zero energy building, not a net zero energy building, a zero energy building. They have geothermal heat pumps, solar water heating, photovoltaics, and batteries. I was just involved in 3 of these towns out of the 100. And all the electricity powers the building, and the extra electricity powers the infrastructure in the town. The signal lights, the water and sewage pumps, all that stuff that we need to have done, that's the shared infrastructure. So here are tons of different kinds of, I have tons of charts on battery types. These are the non-lithium ion batteries on how they deep cycle performance and their maintenance and all that kind of stuff. I have 4 great studies on energy storage for you to pull off the website. And let me see, I know I'm almost done, I have to get out of here. This is the new one, just rolled out in September. This is LG. You know LG, South Korea, they make washing machines and refrigerators. This is their competitive battery, 7.6 kilowatt, 5 kilowatts, sorry, AC coupled for homes where solar is already installed. This is a great system. It's warranted for 10 years. It's easier to get to the Tesla system. I think they both work behaviorally the same, but Tesla's been sort of picky where they'll sell it. LG will sell it anywhere. So they just came in the U.S. market, and they really want to get into it. Am I over?
A couple minutes.
A couple of minutes. This one I love. This is the Tesla Powerwall, and it's a great unit, and I like it. I've used it in some of my commercial applications. Wonderful. And then this is Johnson Controls. I worked for them for a year to help design this. This is for buildings, not really homes unless it's very large or multifamily. It's more for small commercial. But this is the first battery bank in the world that has no wires. And you're thinking, what is he talking about? He's lost his mind. It's true, I've lost my mind, but not on this. This one is designed so when your software says, like happened to my battery bank, battery number 4, twice as hot as the other batteries they have to charge, you have to call your electrician or your service company to change out your battery. This one, you open it up and every battery has a handle and a number on it. And as long as somebody can read numbers, high probability, it's battery number 4, you pull the handle out, there are no wires, and you snap the other one in. And then you move the magnetic forward of that battery so you can do it next time. So that whole balance of system stuff is becoming more user-friendly. So battery monitoring. In my projects, I demand that my battery banks have what I call color-coded icon-based software. The earlier battery banks, and still more than half, have ridiculous software. You need to have an engineering degree and work at NASA for a few years to understand it. And they tell you stuff you don't need to understand. So here's one. I'm just showing you one. And this one, you see the battery's 100% full. But this is the more important one. If you have a lot of batteries, you really need to know 2 things about batteries in a battery bank. You don't need to know almost anything else. You need to know if they're all at the same state of charge. So in this case, they're pretty much all same state of charge. You have a few that are somewhat lower. This is, of course, the lowest one. And you need to know if they're all the same temperature. That's really what you need to know about batteries. If you have ones that are exceedingly low, you want to catch them, and you want to first check the wires to the terminals, just like your car. And then the other ones, you need to know if they're running hotter, you need to pull them out. You need to pull them out reasonably fast because the lowest performing battery drags all your batteries down in performance. If you know those 2 things, that's all you need to do. Now, if the electrician or service company says it was the connectors at the terminals, then in a day later, that orange should turn to green and it should be way up. If it's not, you call them back and say, get that battery the hell out of there. So that's the kind of stuff you need. This is on the Prius. And you can see they show you how full on one of the panels, how the battery is. And I have a solar Prius, so I can see how the solar charges it as well. So that's it. And I answer all questions. I have more studies on storage. I think close to 100. Happy to share them all with you. Also happy there are no dumb questions. So I had started doing batteries in 1985 with my solar systems, because they didn't have interconnection standards back then. So if I wanted to save my energy, I had to use a battery bank. And in my case, in Arlington, high tree canopy, knocked out the wires all the time during storms. That's when I got flooded basements. I'm running the solar trade group and this was before, by the way, some pumps came with batteries. I'm going, maybe I could use solar with a battery to stop my flooding. And after that, I went crazy. Should I do questions at
What
the
we'll
end?
do is I'll get through that and then we'll both stay on.
Hold your questions.
for 10 or 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
Afterwards, I will get through.
My dear colleague, take it away.
Thank you. So it's kind of like going on stage after the